And welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the Thames Valley. Crumbling concrete. How many more schools are affected? We're in Buckinghamshire, where the start of the new term has been thrown into chaos.
This is a big blow again, and not being able to see friends again.
How Tegan, the assistant's dog, has been life-changing for her owner. Maria from Abingdon, whose death tells us about the abuse she suffered before she had her.
Also this Monday, the real cost of university. As more students juggle part-time work along with their studies, advice on how to avoid debt.
And better late than never, how you've been making the most of the September sun.
But before you ask, it's not an Indian summer. I'll be back a little later to tell you just how long this warm weather is set to last.
Good evening. A parent from Buckinghamshire whose child has been told their school is one of those affected by crumbling concrete says it's like COVID all over again.
Well, ahead of their new term, due to start on Wednesday, hundreds of pupils at Waddesdon Church of England School have been told they'll now have to return to online learning.
In a moment, we'll speak to our political correspondent Phil Hornby with the latest reaction from Westminster. But first, Natalie Verney has been speaking to parents in Waddesdon.
I've been hearing there is huge disruption for both parents and children. We all thought online learning was a thing of the past. However, for about 600 pupils here, it's back. And that's because this rack concrete, the concrete that can cause buildings to collapse, is potentially affecting the English, history, religious studies, geography, technology, music and drama departments. Now, the school is due to reopen on Wednesday. For those in years 7, 8 and 9, they'll return as normal to face-to-face classes. But for those in years 9, 10, 11 and 13, they'll need to stay at home and receive their lessons online. Earlier, I spoke to a mum who has a son in year 11. She says both parents and children are anxious about the effect this might have on their grades.
Obviously, he already got really affected by COVID and missing school then, so this is a big blow again, and not being able to see friends again. During COVID they had online learning, and it's not the same as being in school, especially in your final year. The first thing he said, I thought he'd be quite happy about not having to go into school, but he said, oh, well, that's going to affect my GCSEs. So I think they all get that because they've missed out on so much schooling already.
Now, this obviously isn't how the school wanted to start their new year. It came as a surprise to them too. In a letter to parents, the head teacher said it goes without saying that this is extremely regrettable, especially so close to the start of a new school year, but that ultimately the safety of the school community has to take priority. It is, of course, our highest priority to find alternative arrangements that keep any disruption to learning and the normality of school life to an absolute minimum. Now, as we've previously told you, there are a few other schools in the region who are also affected by this concrete. Cranbourne College in Basingstoke, they've already had to take measures to make their concrete safe. And St Francis School in Ascot has had to put up temporary classroom tents and toilets. It's not known how long this disruption is going to last. The parents here have been told that they'll hear more by the end of the week. It's hoped that all pupils will be able to return to school as quickly as possible.
Natalie Verney there. Well, over to Phil now. And Phil, lots of questions for the government about this issue today.
Yes, Sangeet, among them exactly how many schools are affected. The government don't know the precise figure but say it will be a limited number. Another question is who's going to pay for these repairs? Well, the Prime Minister told us today the schools themselves will not have to foot the bill.
There will be extra money to the school, so the school budget won't be impacted by this. They will be given the extra money to deal with the mitigations. And again, just for context, our expectation is 95% of schools won't be impacted by this. And in the 50 or so schools that have already been mitigated, what we've seen is in the majority of cases, children continue to go to school. They're taught elsewhere on the school estate.
Well, those remarks were overshadowed by the Education Secretary today, speaking to ITV News, and she seemed frustrated that she and the government were not getting enough credit for the way they've handled this crisis.
Does anyone ever say, you know what, you've done a job because everyone else has sat on their and done nothing? No signs of that, no?
Well, a few hours later, she apologised for her fruity language, but said she is frustrated.
And Phil, what are Labour saying tonight?
They say all this is typical of a government that just moves from one shambles to the next.
And instead of coming out today and saying this is what we're going to do to fix the problem, which we have made a lot worse, you've got members of the Cabinet coming out trying to blame other people, trying to blame people within their own teams, and to say essentially, put responsibility anywhere but on the government. That is not what Britain deserves.
And what MPs from our region are asking tonight is how many other buildings are affected, not just schools, how many other public buildings and indeed possibly private buildings are affected. And the other big question is why have the warning signs of this, which have been around literally for decades, been ignored?
Phil, thank you.
In other news, police are continuing to investigate a serious collision in Hook involving a van and a 4-year-old girl. It happened on the A30 close to St John's Church yesterday morning at 11:45. The girl was taken to hospital with serious injuries.
A deaf woman from Abingdon who was once around with a shopping trolley because she didn't hear someone ask her to move out of the way says that having an assistance dog has transformed her life.
Maria Johnson now has a black Labrador to help her live her life to the full, but the Buckinghamshire charity that trains the animals says a combination of a puppy boom and a high demand for their services means they urgently need to find more volunteers. Penny Sylvester reports.
Tegan is a fully fledged hearing dog. The 2-year-old lives in Abingdon with Maria Johnson, who's deaf. She developed otosclerosis in her early 30s and losing her hearing shattered her confidence.
I felt nervous when we went outside and I couldn't hear people. I felt nervous if people were talking to me and I didn't know, because I didn't want to appear rude. I've had instances where I've been shopping and people have obviously asked me, excuse me, get out of the way sort of thing, and they've physically rammed me with a shopping trolley because I haven't heard them. Situations like that don't happen now because with Tegan, they can see that I can't hear.
A hearing dog is trained to respond to sound.
She alerts me to the doorbell, to the fire alarm, to the cooker, to when my children need me. Good girl. What is it? My eldest son has got autism and anxiety and she really helps with him. Well done, Tiggy. So now she just gives me more confidence because I know I'm not going to miss anything. Sit. Wait. Good girl. Wait. Hello.
Tegan is fully qualified. But just a few miles away near Wantage, 5-month-old Jester is just starting out. Liz Castle is a regular puppy training volunteer and is teaching him new skills.
You play, you interact with them, and then you're teaching them the basic commands and skills that you would any other puppy. Sit, down, wait, and then later on comes the sound training to gear them towards being a hearing dog.
The Princes Risborough-based charity Hearing Dogs for Deaf People say they have enough puppies to do the job.
Just down.
They just don't have enough volunteers to train them.
Good boy.
Penny Sylvester, ITV News.
A copy of the first ever Harry Potter book worth tens of thousands of pounds has been found at a school in Oxfordshire. The rare version of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was discovered at St Kenelm School in Wickney during a clear-out. It went missing 8 years ago. The school thought it had been thrown away accidentally. It'll be auctioned tomorrow, where it's estimated it could sell for around £20,000.
£20,000.
Yes.
What a very nice thing to find.
Yeah.
You're watching ITV News Meridian here in the Thames Valley. Still to come.
A day of high drama for the U's. Oxford United pay the price for 2 red cards and a late penalty.
And with temperatures set to hit the low 30s this week, how are you making the most of the September sun? Pip will be here.
Well, for more, of course, you can go to our website. The details on the screen, itv.com/Meridian. And as ever, you can follow us on social media.
A student student from the University of Reading says the rising cost of living means she's having to take a part-time job to get by. And she's not alone. The number of students now working has doubled in 2 years.
Well, as students prepare to return to university, charities are calling for maintenance grants to increase. Catherine Walker reports.
University students are known for making do on a tight budget. But rising costs mean more students like Tabby from the University of Reading are having to take part-time jobs simply to make ends meet.
Honestly, it is horrible. Our food shops, my food shop personally, has gone from 25, 30 a week up to 50. And it's just not fair. Coming to uni expecting, the uni experience, the whole lot of it, and then inflation, cost of living, everything's so expensive.
University demands a lot of time and energy, but this year 55% of UK students had to balance their studies with a part-time job, up from 21% from 2021. As students prepare to head back to campus, pressure is mounting on the government to offer more financial support.
What we don't want is people not going to university because they're from modest backgrounds. That would be wrong. In England, I think what we're saying to the Westminster government is it's time to uprate the maintenance support available to students. That's been it's at its lowest level for 7 years, and we do think something needs to be done about that.
Without this intervention, Save the Students are worried that some undergraduates will turn to risky methods of raising money.
So talk me through the budget. How's it looking for a student trying to live off the average maintenance loan?
Well, in a nutshell, the average loan last year was £485 a month, but that compares to living costs of £924 a month. So at the end of the year, that means that the total shortfall is over £4,000.
That is a massive shortfall. How are students trying to make up this money?
I mean, in a variety of different ways. Obviously, some students are able to rely on parental contributions, but that's not something that all students can do. And lots of students, where they haven't been able to get a conventional part-time job, are looking to alternative, potentially riskier forms of income, whether that be credit cards, whether that be overdrafts, payday loans.
Despite a petition for student finance to increase in line with inflation, the government confirmed that maintenance loans will only go up by 2.8% this year.
And in a statement, they told me they have also made £276 million available for universities to help students who are struggling financially.
But finding themselves increasingly out of pocket, some students are questioning whether higher education is worth the cost. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
Well, we can talk more now to Tom Allingham, who we saw in that report. Tom is from Save the Student, an organisation that gives free and impartial advice to students on how to make their money go further. Tom, we just heard there, students are around £4,000 short on their living costs every year. But in reality, that could be even more. That's astounding.
It is, yeah. So it's important to note that that figure came from a survey that we conducted last year. We expect that in the upcoming survey, which we conducted more recently, that figure will be even larger.
So what financial support is there for people who are struggling?
So there are a few things. First of all, I would encourage all students to look to see if they're eligible for any bursaries, grants or scholarships. These aren't just reserved for students, from the lowest income backgrounds or with the highest grades or that kind of thing. There are other bursaries and scholarships out there for students with kind of less conventional criteria, so it's definitely worth doing that. For students in the most pressing financial hardship, it is worth looking into if you're eligible for hardship funding from university. Now, like I say, this is for the students in the kind of worst financial situations. But if you do think that applies to you, it is worth seeing if you get this funding, because it could be a few hundred, maybe even a few £1,000s that doesn't have to be repaid.
So we know many people are now doing 1 or 2 extra jobs to make ends meet. What other bits of advice are there?
Well, the first piece of advice would be, and it sounds simple and it sounds obvious, but to make a budget. Before you go to university, sit down, work out how much money you'll have coming in and how much money you expect to be spending on whatever, all of the essentials. Then from there, you can work out, do I need to have more money coming in, or where can I cut back on other things? As well as that, I would say things like meal planning is really, really important. So, for the week or even for the month, work out what you're going to be spending on food and try and cook in bulk as much as possible. And then beyond that, look to haggle on bills, look to cut down your expenses wherever possible. So save money on your energy bills or save money on your broadband bills or switch to a SIM-only plan because that tends to be cheaper too.
OK, Tom, lots of good advice there. Thank you very much for talking to us.
No problem.
Now, the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international stories at 6:30. With the details for us tonight, here's Mary Nightingale.
Coming up in the programme, an expletive-filled outburst from the Education Secretary, blaming others for the school's concrete crisis.
Does anyone ever say, you know what, you've done a good job because everyone else has sat on their and done nothing? No signs of that, no?
Well, tonight, Gillian Keegan is under serious political pressure. We will have the very latest. At 7, our next special report following the migrants risking their lives to find safety in Europe. And the game changer weight loss drug now available on the NHS. Well, do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Now, just as children go back to school, summer has returned and a mini heat wave could see temperatures in the low 30s by the middle of the week.
Well, Philippa will be here in a moment with your forecast. But first, we sent Grace Williams out on a very tough assignment to soak up the late summer sun.
Sea and sand, two very important ingredients for a lovely trip to the beach. But as we'll all agree, we've recently been missing a key element, the sun.
With many students having already returned to school this week, those who are lucky enough to still be on holiday are here making the most of the surprising September sunshine.
1 week away from starting primary school, Gwen is learning how to crab, rather successfully.
The weather during the summer has been so disappointing, and this is making up for it a bit.
What are we going to call the crab?
Nipper.
Nipper. Oh yeah, Nipper's a good name.
My little girl's starting school for the first time on Wednesday, so we've got a few days left to sort of really enjoy it.
For one business in Mudderford, the return of the warm weather and the need for ice cream is welcomed.
There's been some days this summer, unfortunately, where it's just been awful weather, been raining all day. Sometimes we haven't been able to come down here and open up the raft, so it's amazing that we've had some really good weather this weekend.
In Peacehaven in Sussex, it's a similar story, with many taking to the coast to cool off. And in Sonning near Reading, people are making use of the rivers and waterways to beat the heat.
Today is pretty much my first day and last day of swimming outdoors in an English summer.
Well, it's great it's going to be hot this week, but of course it's the week that they're going back to school. We're going to go in the Thames here this afternoon, hopefully keep cool.
We're fortunate that we've decided to take 4 days holiday on this week. Quite by coincidence, the weather's going to be fine for us, so it couldn't be better.
So, could we be on for a heat wave later this week? Well, it's something that experts aren't ruling out, so it might mean that this summer won't be such a damp squib after all. Grace Williams, ITV News.
Some beautiful pictures in that report there. Pip joins us now. So summer's back on then, yeah?
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? As you say, some absolutely glorious scenes around the Meridian region. It's been a little bit cooler at the coast today because inland we've seen temperatures close to 30 Celsius across much of the region, and they're set to continue to rise through the next few days. And there is a chance we could be in heat wave territory. Take a look at this map from the Met Office. Now, the different colour reds indicate the value we'd have to get to for 3 consecutive days for us to be officially in a heat wave. And for us here in central and southern England, it's 27, 28 degrees depending on where you are. We've exceeded that today. I suspect we will continue to exceed that over the next few days, possibly by a good couple of degrees.
But Pip, this is not an Indian summer. You've ruled that out.
That's right, yes. Yeah, no, Indian summers are generally saved more for October, November. This is just a bit of an extension.
So was our summer as bad as we all think it was?
Which, you know, it actually wasn't quite as bad as we think it was. The numbers are now in. Take a look at this. You might be surprised to learn that it was actually the 8th warmest summer on record for the UK. I know you won't believe me.
That's all right. It was rubbish.
But it was largely thanks to all the work done in June, but also we had quite a lot of mild nights which helped to keep the temperatures up overall. Interestingly, only the 7th June in the whole of the time we've been keeping temperature records that June has been warmer than its respective July and August. But of course it will largely be remembered for a good deal of rain. July, of course, we may remember 6th wettest on record for the UK, and overall summer 11% wetter than usual. Nothing like that this week though. Dry, fine and very warm indeed.
Whatever the weather, it always feels like home. Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV Meridian Weather.
It has been a beautiful day out there to kick off the new week, and more of the same through the next few days. So a good deal of dry and fine weather in the forecast, feeling very warm indeed, especially so as we head towards the end of the working week. But if you do struggle with the heat, then areas along the coast will be breezier and consequently a little bit cooler. And high pressure is, of course, the culprit for all this warm, dry weather. It's going to stick with us through the next few days, so keeping things fine and settled and continuing to bring a feed of warm air our way. Out there at the moment, we're looking at dry and fine conditions to round off the day, and through this evening and tonight it stays dry with clear skies overhead. And with those clear skies and some light winds inland at least, like last night, we could see some patches of mist and fog forming by dawn. And for all of us, it will be a mild night. Temperatures, if anything, rather uncomfortable, sticking between 15 and 17 Celsius across the board. So tomorrow morning, a warm, perhaps rather humid sort of start. A lot of sunshine from the word go, soon burning away any early mist and fog patches, and little change as we head into the afternoon. It stays dry, it stays sunny, and in that sunshine, if anything, temperatures getting a degree or two higher than they have done today. So these are the times of high water tomorrow. As I said, if you're heading to the coast, it will be a little bit fresher. Pool coming in there at 1 minute past 2 in the morning and 8 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. And then confirmation of more of the same as we head through the next few days. A good deal of dry weather, plenty of sunshine, winds pretty light with it, getting warmer still by day, and some sticky nights to come as well. Do take care.
Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV Meridian Weather.
That's it for now. In a moment, the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale, and I'll be back with your late update just after 10:30.
For now, though, from all of us here, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the sunshine if that's your thing. See you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.